What's going on YouTube? Once again, thoughts of a African American software developer. Um, so this series of videos I'm creating is my thoughts, experiences regarding software development. I primarily created it to encourage more African American participation in this profession. So I'm giving my 20 years experience as a software developer that worked primarily in the New York City financial industry, but I worked for startups. I've built my own applications as an entrepreneur. So I'm just giving my experience. Today's video is for web mobile developers. It's basically learn Angular if you're doing web and mobile development. So why should you learn Angular? You know, you already built web, and if you're an experienced web and mobile developer, why should you learn Angular? You've already built web development using React.js. You've already built web and mobile applications using jQuery, even using Angular.js. So basically, Angular has two different flavors. They have the first iteration of Angular was Angular.js, and then Google got on board and modified the application, refactored Angular.js into Angular 2 that came out in 2016. So Angular 2 is the refactored version of Angular. And as I said before, is backed by Google. And Google is basically setting a standard in developing web and mobile applications. And they're putting a lot of resources into Angular as being the standard for building web and mobile applications. So right now, the Angular framework, Angular 2 framework, has been out roughly 3 years. So it's still gaining acceptance in the development circles, and in corporate America that you're starting to see newer projects. Newer projects are looking for Angular developers. It's not. It's gaining traction. So it's a relatively new platform, and as time goes by, you're going to see more and more demand for Angular. So right now, the demand is for jQuery, React.js, but in the near future, you're going to see more demand for Angular. So as I said, Google is basically in charge of the Angular platform as far as pushing out newer versions of Angular. Right now, we're at Angular 8, and they do 6-month iterations in releasing versions. So every year you're going to have two versions of two newer versions of Angular being released. So right now we are at Angular 8, and you ask, all right, what's the purpose behind that? The thing is, they're rolling in whatever new features, bug fixes, security fixes, and with the backing of Google, Google's building a lot of their platform in Angular. So a lot of the Google services that you see online, they're built in Angular now. They're rolling out everything in Angular, so that's the standard. So in the future, you're going to see more demand for Angular. So, I mean, this video is more of preemptive, to get developers excited and wanting to learn this new technology. So if you already have a background in web development, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, Angular is just adding to that particular, the particular skill set. So it's adding, just another framework to build with. So you say, all right, why should I use Angular as a web mobile build tool? First off, if you're building in a large scale environment, a corporate environment, Angular utilizes building with modularization. So using different pieces, different components. So you're building components within your modules. So some of these components, it allows you to separate components. Components that can be reused, modules that can be reused, and modules that are more specific for a particular application that may not be reusable. And the benefit of reusability is that you're not reinventing the wheel. You're building components and modules that can be reused in other applications. If you're building for a large organization, you can reuse those modules. If you're an entrepreneur and you're building out web and mobile modules, web and mobile applications, you can reuse your code, reuse your modules in other applications. And that saves time. It saves time, basically. Time is money. In terms of you're using something that's already been tested, that's already been proven. So that saves time and money. So that's the basically that's the selling point. Also, it allows you to build out applications very quickly. Once you get a hang of writing Angular applications, you can build out web and mobile modules very quickly with a lot of functionality built in. A lot of functionality built in. So it has a lot of the standards as far as the user interface, as far as color palettes. Google has a library called Google Material Design Library that has certain standards for using color palettes for buttons and toolbars and different pieces. So all of that is baked into the Angular framework, and it allows you to build an application with built-in standards fairly quickly. So this is not a tutorial. There are a number of tutorials on YouTube that show you how to get started in Angular. But I'm gonna recommend two books that I've just been devouring this year. Learning Angular. The first book is this book here, Angular in Action. It's by Manning Publication. Uh, it's a very good book to get you up to speed with Angular from start to finish. So it goes through all the different features on how to build an Angular application, how to set up your computer to use whatever Angular tools that are out there. Very good resource for getting started with Angular. The second book is this book, Angular Development with TypeScript. So this book goes more in depth than the first book. The first book is good for starting off. This book goes in depth. This book just came out in 2019. It came out this year. The previous book came out in 2017. The code base is they're dealing with Angular 6 version 6 code base, but it's still a very good reference material. The code isn't dated; it's up to date. The examples that they use, but this book is up to date, and it goes more in depth into the particular the Angular framework. So I recommend both of those books. This was the second book that I'm just still going through because there's so much to learn in Angular. This is a 300-page book, so I'm going to be studying this for years to come. But I see the demand for Angular developers going up as the years go by, as new projects get greenlit. So if you're a UI developer, if you're a full stack developer like I am, full stack, someone that develops from the database, the middle tier to the front end, I suggest that you get into Angular, and you can also incorporate your various JavaScript libraries into the Angular framework. So if jQuery, Angular incorporates jQuery, Angular incorporates React.js into its framework. So if you're familiar with React.js and observables, Angular uses the observable patterns from React.js, and any sort of any type of UI library for styling, Angular, you can incorporate that into Angular. So it's not changing your development style. It's actually enhancing. It's making it easier for you to write web and mobile applications. So with that, I say peace. So like I said, learn Angular. You're going to see more demand for Angular developers in the near future, within, I say, another year or two. And like I said, Angular, to recap, Angular has a 6-month release cycle for versioning. So every 6 months they release a new version. And it's backed by Google. It has the backing of a giant. So they're already setting the standards. So if you're a new developer, you better be, if you're a new web UI developer, or you're experienced, seasoned web UI developer that's looking to enhance his skills, learn Angular. And with that, I say peace.